Much talking. Turn up the vocal. All right. I hope that's a little bit better. Do let me know if everything sounds okay. So this is essentially your first banjo lesson. What would happen? And you know, I've been playing for so long that I forget a lot of these things. So I have to imagine somebody sitting in front of me and they've just bought a banjo. They've taken it out of the box, the case. And they're like, what now? So I'm going to go through those fundamental steps. All right. So feel free in the comments to jump in with questions and stuff. I won't be on for hours, but we're just going to go through the fundamentals, the very basics. So first things first is what is it all about, right? Your first lesson, you've bought a banjo, you're clearly excited about playing Irish music. And that's a really good thing to remember, is that this is supposed to be fun, right? It can be very technical and complicated and sometimes, you know, stressful, particularly when we're learning something new. That brings an element of stress and focus and hyper focus. But always remember that this is supposed to be about fun and about playing lovely music. Lovely music doesn't have to be massively complicated. It's just about playing the music that you want to play and finding the beauty in something simple as well as something complicated and fast. All right, so you're taking it out. You want to have the banjo pretty much self-supporting so that you don't have to hold it with your left hand. So the less stress that you have to go into in order to hold the banjo or play the banjo, the better. We're going to talk a little bit about alignment and why that's important. And so for some people, they're going to need a strap. You want the banjo to sit in your lap. Now, some people will play on one leg like that, and that's fine. And generally speaking, the banjo is going to just kind of sit there pretty comfortably with it that way. But I like it kind of sitting in my lap. The way that I do it is I raise one leg ever so slightly, and that might be a little box or a little footstool or something like that. And that keeps the banjo in place. But if you don't like that, get a strap. It just holds it in place so you don't have to hold it up. The way that I have the neck angle is what I recommend. All right. There might be an inclination to do it like this so that you can bring the left hand closer to your face so that you can see what's going on. But you want it so that your right hand, you can see the difference. I want you to look down here. Your right hand is coming onto the banjo in a much more aligned way, elbow to neck, right? Matt Weller, +1 for team strap. Exactly. Okay. So we're just going to talk about that for now. Get seated comfortably. You don't have to go into like mad yoga postures or straight as a rod or anything like that. This is all about comfort and ease. Irish banjo is tuned like a fiddle or like a mandolin. It's in fifths. It's tuned G, D, A, E. So from the lowest to the highest, starting with a G. All right. It's always kind of funny because while G is the lowest note in the register, it's the one closest to your face. So sometimes when people say hit your top string, they mean the one closest to the ceiling, or hit your top string, which is your highest pitch, which is the other one. So for the purposes of this, I always think in musical terms. My lowest string is low G, the next one is D, next one is A, and the next one is E. First thing you have to do is tune your banjo. Simplest way, buy a tuner, right? That was slightly out of focus. You don't need one as expensive as this. This is TC Electronics. They're about $45 for €45. They are absolutely brilliant. You can get a free tuning app on your phone, and this is just the easiest way to tune. Now, if you're a complete newbie and your banjo's utterly out of tune, you might have to retune as you go. So you get the D string into tune. By tightening one of the strings, it may cause another one to go flat. So then you go and you tune the second one, go back and check the first one, tune another one, go back and check the first one. I generally start with A, and then D, and then I do G, or the lowest string. And then up to the top, the one closest to the floor. So that might seem simple, but it's a question that I get asked a lot. How do I tune my banjo? And the simplest answer is to get a tuner. Like I said, there's any amount of free ones online, on your phone, or buy a clip-on tuner. And then you're in tune. So this is your first lesson. Now, what's next? You have to hold the pick, all right? Now, what pick? Well, I just dropped that one, but I fortunately have loads. The $1 million question. I would say for absolute starters, get yourself a Dunlop 60mm, the grey Dunlop pick. And I say that because you could play one of those for 5 years and it's not going to wear down to where it's going to be noticeable. So for starting out, it's a very solid pick. It's just about the right thickness so that, you know, getting the picking pattern and the picking technique down. And it's not going to wear down to where it's annoying you. My pick of preference at the moment is a Stringjoy 0.5mm. Okay, so it's a crisp pick. It's crisper than the Dunlop. And for tone, I like it. Okay, but it does wear down. And this is going to sound crazy to an absolute newcomer. I'll use 2 or 3 of those every time I play a session or a gig. And then they're worn down to where they annoy me. So for someone that's starting out, I would say get a more robust pick, like the grey Jim Dunlop 50mm pick. And that'll get you started. You won't even think about picks for a little while after that. So, how do you hold the pick? And we're into absolute fundamentals, you know. How do you hold the pick? So, my recommendation is based on close to 30 years of observation of other players, observing the greats of bluegrass music, the guitarists and the mandolins, the greats of Irish music, and just by my own kind of thought process, always thinking that the fundamental underlying message is to reduce tension in your wrist, shoulder, fingers, arms, and in between your 2 ears as much as possible when you're playing any instrument, when you're playing the banjo. So what is going to reduce the amount of physical stress? And there's 2 ways to hold the pick, and I'm going to explain why one is better than the other, in my opinion. One that you see is when people hold it like a pencil, for all intents and purposes, okay? And that creates a sort of a circular system between your thumb, index finger, and sometimes your middle finger as well. But in order to do that, you're squeezing in 2 directions. This is acting, thumb is acting. And that creates this kind of zone of tension, all right? So my recommendation is to place the pick on the outside of a lightly curled index finger and put your thumb across it. Now it's a different shape. The index finger being curled in is a very stable foundation for the pick, and there's almost no muscle effort required to keep that in place. You back it up with your middle finger, essentially, but both of those are largely inactive in a squeezing sense. The pick because it's going in on this outside edge, you put your thumb across it. Essentially the weight of your thumb and a little bit of gravity holds the pick in place. So the amount of physical muscle effort required to hold the pick in this way is almost zero, okay? And sometimes, just as a crazy example, I can pick really, really fast and I'm barely holding the pick. In actual fact, a lot of the time if I do something like tremolo, literally only the weight of my thumb is holding the pick in place. So it's very, 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 very light pick hold. Okay, now I've just like zoomed into lesson 11. So let's roll it back a little bit. This is why I have a chair with wheels. Pick hold, as you look at it from top down, it should look a little bit like this, all right? With your middle finger behind. So what's the goal here? To reiterate, relaxed, easy, gentle connection with the strings. The idea is to make very beautiful, simple music. Okay? So it's worth pointing out now that banjo picking is down, up, down, up. So it's an alternate picking mechanism. We try to lead as much as possible with a down stroke on the down beat, so down, up. So just think of it in terms of alternate down, up, down picking. What can happen, and again, I'm just putting myself into the mind, and having taught lots of people over the years, into the mind of somebody who's completely new on banjo. And sometimes what happens is you go, okay, and down, 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 down. And it's a consequence of it being new and the concentration. So I would suggest rolling it right back and beginning with one single string and just picking. What we want to establish as much as possible is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And just do it on one note, on one string. Pick the D string. If this is your first time doing it, it's going to feel incredibly weird because it's a brand new movement. So this brings me on to how does the hand and arm interplay with the banjo? Okay, one of the things we want to avoid is the dog barking in the background for starters, is a floating wrist where we're controlling from our elbow. And in order to do that, we want to make physical contact with the banjo. So what I suggest is that there are it's very hard to hold up two fingers and a pick, 2 points of contact. There's your forearm. Just for definition, that's the bit between your wrist and your elbow. This bit. That's on the armrest of the banjo. Worth pointing out, if you buy a banjo that's set up for Irish music, so like a clarine or one of those, the armrest is going to be placed so that it fits snugly up against the tailpiece. There's no gap. Sometimes if you buy a banjo online or a banjo that's been set up for jazz playing or Dixieland or whatever, that tenor banjo playing, the armrest will be up here and there'll be a gap. The reason for that is that different style of playing, they play up here for starters, and it's, now I'm out of my own tune. I almost sound like I know what I'm doing when I do that, but I don't. So that's why the armrest is up here instead of down here. For Irish music, we want the armrest snug to the tailpiece, because our forearm is going to make contact with the armrest. And the important point is that this kind of karate chop part of your hand, the heel of your hand on the baby finger side, this needs to make physical contact with the banjo. And we're not pressing anything, I used to use the word anchoring, but that suggests like really heavy pushing, which is not what we want. This should be just a gentle connection, but a connection. And when you make contact with 2 points onto the banjo, it means that you're no longer controlling everything from your elbow. And the elbow is a very long lever, you know, if we're going to get all physics about it, to do very fine movements. Especially for the very close definition that we want with Irish music when we go to do triplets. All right? So essentially, that soft part of the hand is going to come on to, I mean, realistically, the strings behind the bridge. Okay? Your thumb is going to graze the bridge. And that's why I saw it on Facebook yesterday. People were talking about sanding down the corner of the bridge, rounding it off. Some bridge makers will send out the bridge rounded, other ones that are pointed and really painful. It'll just put a hole in your thumb from playing against the hard edge. So get a bit of sandpaper and round it off. So what you want to avoid is sitting on the bridge itself. Sitting on the bridge kills the tone. So again, if you're a complete newbie, how this operates, we hit a string, it reverberates through the bridge into the head. That sound is pushed through, and this is called a resonator, this pot part. And that projects the sound back out. So there's a lot of happening here in terms of reverberation and resonance. If we sit on the bridge is a critical part of that whole communication process. It's fine to graze off it because the benefit that it brings to your picking technique is worth the tiny trade-off in tone. There will be a small tonal effect, but it's not enough to really be concerned about, because the benefit it'll bring to your picking is really what's important. So 2 points of contact. I like to have 1 foot up so that this is supportive. And watch where my arm is coming in along. It's coming in low so that the angle of my pick is not like very, very sharp. And it's not perfectly perpendicular either, as Peter picked a pot of pickled peppers. But that's the shape, which is always worth seeing. And of course, there's a great benefit, as I'm doing right now, looking at myself on a screen or on a mirror, in a mirror, when I'm playing, because then I can see what's happening. You know, or is this happening? Is this happening? So we want to avoid all of that. All right. Left hand. Now, this is kind of like, you know, are we going to play what we call 4-finger method or 3-finger method? 3-finger being fiddle or mandolin, and 4-finger being a sort of a unique style that I see really only in banjo playing. And what I mean by that is that most of the music is going to happen in the first 5 frets. Which is what we call first position, if you want to get into classical violin terms. And the critical difference is what finger goes on fret 5. And I see the blurring issue, Matt. Yeah. So I'm just trying to look cool with a blurred out background. Some folks will use a pinky for all of their fret 5. And some people will use their ring finger for fret 5 and use their pinky only for fret 7. A lot of this is going to come down to what feels comfortable for you. I will say that if I was going back to the start and learning from fresh now, knowing what I know, having played for so long, I would learn 5-finger or 4-finger method with my pinky on fret 5, because it strengthens my pinky and it just gives me an awful lot more flexibility with what I'm going to do with my fingers. Okay, I learnt using my ring finger for fret 5, and then because I was lazy, I never really developed my pinky. So what I do now, if you look at any of my videos on YouTube, you'll see that I use a combination of both. So sometimes I'm using my pinky for fret 5 and sometimes I use my ring finger. So it's hard for me to prescribe what I do because it's an amalgam of both. try out and see what's comfortable for you. You know, if you try to play your pinky on fret 5 and it feels really weak and really awkward, it might be just a bridge too far, and it's not going to set you back in any great fashion at all. What I would say is don't squeeze the neck. Don't be clamped to it. Again, it's about ease and about being able to move around in a very relaxed way. And if you are a classical guitarist already, you're at a huge advantage, because I see really great guitar players who play banjo and they have this wonderful open finger, open hand. I don't have that. I have quite a lot of constrictions in my fingers. I'm perfectly able to get around 99.9% of all Irish music. But if I want to do anything that's a little bit out of, you know, those first 5 or 6 frets, I wish I had a more open-handed system. But I don't, so we get on with it. All right. So we've covered the position of the neck, the position of the banjo, how to hold the pick, where to place your hand, a little bit in terms of your left hand. The one thing to avoid, and with the left hand as much as possible, is what I call hot fret syndrome, which is that as you're playing, you're jumping off. I see it caused by two reasons. One is that kind of beginner syndrome, which is like the hyper focus and that you know, really heavy concentration, that when I play a note and then I need to jump off it and then jump off it, and you know, so that I'm focusing on playing one single note at a time because I'm learning and I'm reading the music. And the other thing then is just overall tension, that the fingers are doing too much. Down to an ad. I'm watching my own live stream. Isn't YouTube wonderful? Skipped my own ad. Right. Tension. So things just move too much. All right. So think about efficient economy of motion. Try not to aim or worry too much about volume and speed. They will come in their own time. You can't force it. And forcing it will create a raft of other problems. Now, this is your first lesson. You've just bought a banjo. I want you to learn how to play one solitary note and become very confident with it. And that's the most boring thing ever, right? Because you're like, oh, but I want to play the Rocky Road to Dublin. It's like, the Rocky Road to Dublin is a series of one notes. And I know that sounds like cheesy and also deeply philosophical at the same time. Learn how to play one note. All right, we need to start with one. We got to get the mechanics of the playing down. We got to get really comfortable with what's happening. Start at the D string. Can you remember which one that is? Second one down from the roof. Start by establishing a strong alternate picking pattern. Down, up, and become attuned to the feeling of the pick making contact with the string. Not that one, that's A. And then you can play around with speeding that up. And even changing up where you put the emphasis. Okay, so this is about, because this is all, these are new movements. So your hands are doing new things, and it takes time to build up what we used to call muscle memory, and now what is this? New neural pathways. Okay, and so the fastest way to build this is with really slow, focused, mindful repetition. Okay, And it goes back to that idea that if you play too fast, too soon with lots of mistakes, you are practicing the physical movements of the mistakes. So we want to practice the physical movements of clear, confident playing. And that expedites the process to playing tunes and to playing faster. So patience at the start. And you don't have to do like 4 hours of one note. 10 minutes, and that's a long length of time, but it can become a very enjoyable process if you allow yourself to enjoy one note. Again, the on-screen look back or a mirror is really beneficial because you can keep an eye on as this is your first lesson, I don't want you to go off one string. The alternate picking down, up runs into problems mostly when we change strings. And until you're confidently able to do that, you know, for the first couple of days of playing, just stick with the one string. If you're able to do that, that's a great start, right? We're just talking about the first couple of frets on one string, and change that up and do it on another string. And we're trying to build confidence and keep the body relaxed. There's a lot to think about at the start. Okay, you might find that this starts to drift up as you're keeping an eye on the fingers, or your hand is drifting, or there's tension coming into it. So for this, you know, very nascent stage, keep it really simple in terms of what you're playing so that you can enjoy and be confident in those first couple of notes. The next stage from that is to build this into very simple tunes. And again, if you can play one note clearly and confidently and comfortably, but the confident thing is a big word for me at the moment, because I'm thinking if you're confident, you're already comfortable. You know what you're doing and you're not panicking. And, you know, panicking and overthinking goes with the, you know, hyper concentration, and that all adds to tension. So I'm not going to get into the world of breathing and relaxation because that's down the line. I'm not even going to get into the world of tunes. This is your first lesson. I want you to learn how to play a couple of notes on one string, do them over and over and over, and check in. How are you feeling? Can you feel tension creeping in? How's your pick hold? Is it comfortable? It's going to be weird at first because it's brand new. And we take it from there. That's a lot for one day. You know? Now, if you're already playing and you're flying it and you want to experience what it is that I'm doing online, I have a lot of YouTube videos. I have a lot of lessons online. I have 2 books that I've written. One book covers all of this fundamental stuff, and you can find that on my website, which is irishbanjolessons.com. You can find it on SoundSlice, which is the platform where I host my lessons and where I host my ebooks and all of my courses. And if you want to experience it, I'm just going to drop a comment now, which is a link to a free lesson on SoundSlice. And you can just, it's a free registration, and you can go in, and it's for a jig called Banish Misfortune, which is a complicated jig. There's lots going on in it, but it'll give you an indication of what I'm doing online, which is I'm covering through learning a tune twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. I take the most basic version of a tune and really enjoy the simplicity of it, pointing out any technique issues that need to be addressed. So sometimes it's a high B note with a pinky, Sometimes it's a picking thing that we just need to look at very carefully and make sure that the picking is accurate. Or we'll talk about ornamentation. And then I develop that tune slowly and in a graduated fashion, adding in simple ornaments, talking about how to do ornamentation on the banjo. Because that's a whole other picking pattern, essentially, that's happening in conjunction with this alternate picking pattern that we've been talking about. And then building that up to a very complicated piece of music. And you can see that it's a step-by-step process. And it's important to be patient and do each step by turn. What's also really interesting is that you can go, if you have a little bit of confidence as a musician, to the most complicated version of the tune and learn that at a slower pace. Do you know? And that way you can play really fun and really interesting music, but you don't have to do it at crazy session speeds. So there's a lot available. A lot available. I hope that I haven't missed out any interesting comments. Yes, 1 fret is 1 semitone, or is that a step? That's the advanced chromatic scale. So that's it. I have lots of fun stuff coming up on. I have my Patreon. This year I'm going to, hopefully this week, start teaching how, I'll have to learn it myself first, how to play chords with songs. You know, fun stuff. I just did a 19-lesson course for the Mason's Apron. Might as well play a tune. I'll tune my G string up to A so that you can ignore the early part of this lesson where I said it's tuned to G. And if you want to know why, go watch my video, Funk the Cajun Blues. So, I'm going to do just a playthrough of the Mason's Apron. Thank you for watching. So if you can sign up for the free course that's there for Banished Misfortune. Drop me an email. Go on to irishbanjolessons.com, and there's links there to everything. There you go. Mason's apron. Don't forget, it's just a series of one notes. All right. Thanks very much for watching. If you want more, like I said, irishbanjolessons.com. Make sure to subscribe to the channel before you leave. And like